countries.
Now, for more on this, let's speak with Antony Loewenstein. He's a freelance journalist who has supported Wikileaks and Julian Assange since 2006. Antony, what's top of your mind as you see events unfold today with Assange finally in court in this US territory in the Pacific?
Relief. Overjoyed, really, like so many people. I'm currently in Sydney, and really the majority of Australians for years, based on public opinion polls, have wanted our citizen to be released. It was always seen as an absurdity that an Australian citizen who does not hold American citizenship, who's barely spent any time in America, was able to be charged under the Espionage Act for practicing journalism. And the majority of Australians wanted him home, because I think it also goes to the question of Australia's relationship with the US, which is always seen as very unequal. I mean, Australia essentially is a client state of Washington. And this example for years showed that Australia's belief that our own citizens should come home was seemingly secondary to what the US wanted. So I'm overjoyed. I obviously hope that when Julian comes home, he can spend time with his family and recuperate after years and years of incarceration.
And what do you make then of the fact that he's now officially pled guilty to this single charge of conspiring to obtain and disclose classified US national defense documents?
Look, he had no choice. I mean, obviously, I don't know all the ins and outs of the legal manoeuvres behind the scenes between his legal team, and obviously that's up to him and his team to explain the decisions that they made. But there was no other way to get out. And I think it's still outrageous that the US administration demanded that he pled guilty to a charge of doing things that the vast majority of good journalists do all the time, namely finding sources, releasing information. I mean, national security journalism would not exist if all this was made illegal. And the caveat to the amazing news of him being released and coming back to Australia is that it still casts a shadow over other investigative journalists in the US and elsewhere, that if you essentially upset the empire, if you upset Washington, which is really what this was about, no lives were ever lost from WikiLeaks documents, despite what the US claimed many years ago. But what they did do was it embarrassed America. And if you embarrass America, whether you're Edward Snowden or Julian Assange, you will pay a price. And eventually, I think, as a journalist myself who's used WikiLeaks documents for essentially since 2006 in articles and books and various other stories, there's no other major media organization in my adult life that has contributed more to understanding how global power works, whether it's Iraq, Afghanistan, Guantanamo Bay, Putin, CIA, Palestine. WikiLeaks documents reveal that, and it's all obviously available for public use now on their website.
Now, I just want to get you up to speed. We do have some reporters in the courthouse that have been sending us updates of what the judge has been saying. The judge has been running through the charges and asking Assange if he understands the details of them. She also reminded him that there are some consequences to him pleading guilty, like access to the US. To your knowledge, do you understand that there to be any sort of legal implications to him pleading guilty?
Look, we don't really know the details is the short answer. I mean, essentially, he's coming back to Australia, will be given his Australian passport. He's an Australian citizen. And if he, for example, cannot access the US, I'm not convinced that's going to upset him too much, considering his fear, correctly, of going to the US to actually face a judge. He obviously wanted to go to a US client state here near Australia. So the ins and outs of that, we don't know. I would hope in time that with an Australian passport, he can be a free man. I mean, he is a free man. He should be able to travel where he wants. If it means he cannot go to America, somehow I don't think that's going to upset him too much.
All right. Thanks very much, Antony, for your thoughts today. Antony Loewenstein, a freelance journalist who's been following the case and supporting Julian Assange since 2006.